Welcome to the Two Top Podcast, the weekly podcast where we go over different topics in the world. I'm your host, Thomas Lance, and I'm here with my co-host, Matt Berg.
How's it going?
You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter to stay updated on the latest episodes.
Now let's dive right into this week's episode of Two Top.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
Back to the Two Top Podcast. The weekly podcast is now back to a weekly schedule. Back from my trip.
Abroad. Where were you?
Belgium. A couple days in Holland.
Wow.
Visiting family. It was a good time.
Two Top gets around.
Yeah, we do. We do. And you know what? When you go around, you see things, and different places have different rules, different laws. And in Europe, one thing that they do is they're very farming based and very agriculture. You see the fields, the windmills, the cows everywhere, especially near where my grandparents live. They live outside the town of the city of Antwerp, and they live right behind a cow farm. But thinking of farms and stuff made me think of one of the most important things that comes into people's minds when they think of farms, and that currently right now is GMOs. Are GMOs bad? What do you think?
In my opinion, I believe, isn't everything genetically modified?
At this point, 80 to 90% of everything in the U.S. is genetically modified.
And I mean, you can have your opinion about what's in the grocery store these days. Half of it's good, half of it's bad, healthy, not so healthy. GMOs, it's a huge topic.
Yeah, and from what I found, the answer is no, they're not that bad. They're not bad at all. All the studies are all like weird coincidences. Like recently, there's a study that GMOs cause more cancer, and this was done in with rats. But later, it was published in a paper, and after a while, people were doing, since it's a peer-reviewed paper, as science goes, the peers look at it, and they realized it was tested on a variety of rat that had an 80% chance of getting cancer, and it was on a small sample size, and it was just not that controlled. So there was no real correlation between this food, because it was GMO food, gave rats cancer. And people will find that information and they'll stick to it. The idea of GMOs have been around for the past 200 years. We have been modifying food now more naturally since the 1800s. Say we have a small tomato plant and a big tomato plant. Are we going to grow more of the small ones or the big ones? No, we're going to keep with the big ones.
Obviously, it's the obvious answer.
And we're going to breed them with other tomatoes so we get bigger tomatoes every year. Same thing with corn. Corn back in the day was like the size of a pea pod, and look at it now. And this is just something that happens. We want to advance, and in order to advance, we have to advance the things around us. That might be food. But GMOs nowadays, they're kind of modified with a little bit more science. What they do is they use gene guns, and these things are wild. So they take a little gold particle, cover it in the DNA that they want to insert on it, and then they shoot the cells of the plant with this gold with pressurized air. So
Wow.
They're just shooting DNA like Rambo, hoping that this
Slinging guns.
Yeah, hoping that this plant takes up this new DNA. And it works, and then they slowly work it into the plants. And an example is, think of rice. Rice is everybody eats rice. And especially in Africa and less developed countries, rice is a good food source. Now, children in the world, they need their vitamins. And recently, there's been rice that's been enhanced with vitamin A. So kids who are less able to get vitamin A now can get their vitamins. Is that a bad thing?
Obviously, no. You want
Obviously
them to
not.
be healthy.
So I kind of do draw a line at some point. You can genetically modify plants all you want, but recently I read that they are now genetically modifying salmon, the fish.
So in that case, would it be through the breeding, the fish breeding, or is that chemically done through gene splicing?
They gene splice the fish itself, that future generations of the fish, which kind of throws me off, because what are you trying to get out of a genetically modified fish?
Fat fish.
Fat fish?
Is that what they're going for?
Because
they're already pretty healthy alone to where we have them now if they are genetically modified.
right.
So they're pushing it further.
So one thing I should point out is I'm using the word genetically modified organisms, GMOs, but in reality they're more genetically engineered. Because genetically modified, you can modify by breeding, but genetically engineered is when science gets involved.
Yeah, it's not selective breeding.
Now, it's not perfect because the big company, Monsanto's, they're really known for their GMOs. They're the people who make Raid.
Oh yeah, the evil corporation that has the monopoly.
That's
Correct.
that's where I'm going into that GMOs kind of have a negative side. So if you're modifying these plants for pest control, you have to make sure that you're not killing the pests you like the butterflies, the bees, the pollination. And the problem is you have to get really exact. So we'll get to that point, but it takes years. And another thing that I'm not a fan of GMOs, the reason that I dislike GMOs, from a food aspect, I think it's great. Keep doing it. But from a legal standpoint, I don't agree with it. Here's the deal when it comes to laws with GMOs. If, say you have your small local farmer and then your big farm Monsanto's next to it. Monsanto's uses their genetically modified seeds, and in order to use those seeds, you have to pay for them. Now, the local farmer, he's using his regular seeds that he has. And at the end of the season, he then takes his seeds and he tries to cultivate and get as much back. Like if you plant a bunch of sunflowers, you want to get as many of those seeds back so you don't have to buy more seeds. Now, the problem is, say there's a big gust of wind and some of Monsanto's seeds land on your field and you accidentally pick them up and you start to grow them. Monsanto's can then sue you for using their property.
Because they own the rights to the seed, the genetically modified seeds.
It's like a copyright on DNA. And the problem is these little farmers are getting screwed over by these big companies from something that they can't control. That's why I'm not too big of a fan of the legal aspect of GMOs. But also that's a really weird thing to think about. Copywriting DNA. Like the first time I saw this was at the pet store. You can buy glow-in-the-dark fish. Fish that has been spliced with jellyfish DNA that can make it glow. And that's weird, but it's cool.
It's cool, but weird, yes.
Cool, but weird. But the thing is, it was called Glowfish. TM. Trademark.
Trademark, yeah, no one can take that.
You trademark the living animal.
It's like trademarking a human.
Yeah.
Thomas, trademark.
That's weird. That like trademarking something natural, that's...
Yeah, it's I agree.
It's more expensive and it's cheaper this way. And from all the studies I've seen, they're all dead ends. It's not bad for you. So, will I stop eating GMOs? No. But if there's a rally against Monsanto's, would I go? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Monsanto is you can call it an evil corporation that runs, it's a monopoly over the food industry. It's crazy. I mean, everybody knows it. There's documentaries out there. You can see the small farms have completely died, the well-being of the farmers themselves. They're no longer stable.
That's why we have to protect the little guys and maybe fix the rules when it comes to these things like seeds and copyrights on DNA.
Mm-hmm.
But it is cool. Like, I remember reading somewhere that they've invented corn that when insects eat it, the food of the corn, something about it messes with the bug's like stomach and the bugs explode from the inside out.
Poisonous kernels for bugs and not humans.
Yeah.
It's the ideal corn.
Thank goodness it's not poisonous for humans.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's another fear with GMOs when you're messing with the actual DNA and growing mass crops to feed whole populations. Even though it's cheaper, it's extremely dangerous. And that's why the government has a huge part in it, regulating the food industry, the FDA.
Well, yeah. And the problem with that is also you create so much food, and in order to find out if it's bad or not, food is something that we eat throughout our whole lives. Like, I've been eating since I've been a kid. I don't know how long you've been eating. Have you been eating since you were little?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy how
Since
that works.
almost day one,
food.
practically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
mush.
The thing is, in order to find out if they're bad, it'd have to be a lifelong study. And how would you know if someone died because of what they ate?
Things change so quickly. You never know. There's so many factors.
Exactly. So are GMOs bad? From what we know right now, absolutely not. And you shouldn't be afraid to eat them.
Because practically, like we said, almost nearly everything is genetically modified to some extent.
Well, but yeah, what do you think of genetically modified animals, though?
Well, that is like, well, like you said, there's either like a selective breeding or there's actually genetically engineered animals that are used through gene splicing where they inject them with not just like hormones. I don't know what they're exactly injecting them with.
No,
but
that's
healthier genes, healthier strain of genes, right?
yeah. Hormones is something kind of different because that's done to an active living animal. Like engineering the genes would be
From birth.
from birth,
Okay.
which is, I guess in a sense that would be better because then there wouldn't be the steroids and stuff in it.
Yeah,
that
it's just it starts out that way, so the animal doesn't know any different than what it is already jacked up if it has huge flanks of meat, if it's a cow or something.
just steroids built in.
Yeah, I was born that way,
It's a very thin line.
It is a line, and like you said, you draw a line for yourself when it comes to how you feel about it. And I agree. There's definitely a balance out there between what's right and what's wrong and how far these companies should go.
And especially in today's modern culture of everybody's going organic, you got Whole Foods, Wegmans, and even all Acme, Giant, all them, they're really showing off. It's like, we got organic produce.
Is it really organic? That's a huge question.
That's the problem. Like, if things have been around for so long, how do you know that that's the original? Like, the only thing I know that's really original is, have you had a heirloom tomato?
Yeah, like an heirloom. Yeah,
Those
yeah.
are heirloom produce is very, like, as natural as it gets, I believe.
Yeah, it's the point. Heirloom. It's I guess the original seeds from the original plant. It hasn't been modified. It's not. That's why they look all funky. Like an heirloom tomato looks it's got like brown spots on it. It's like a funky looking tomato. It's not that bright red tomato that you picture.
I think GMOs will be around. I don't think they're going away anytime soon. I think they're here to stay.
Oh yeah, they have to. I don't think there's any turning back now, right?
No, not at this point. But that's what I have for our
GMOs.
lovely discussion.
I think this episode happens to be the food episode.
Oh, what do you have for me this
Because
week?
I want to cover the human side of food, the actual eating food, and I want to talk about the human stomach and how much food can it actually hold.
That is always a thought I have because sometimes, say I go to Chipotle, I get a burrito, and then every once in a while I'll do a size comparison, thinking,
Yeah.
this is the half the size of my head,
Oh yeah.
and I'm about to eat all of this
You
in
can have
one
a
sitting.
food baby in you.
Yeah. So, how does it go down?
Well, before I dive into the mechanics of the actual organ of the stomach, I just want to say, the other day I was at dinner and it was an all-you-can-eat crab leg dinner. So obviously this got me thinking, like, how much could you eat? And we asked the waiter, what is the most baskets you've ever seen eaten? And he was like, just 2 weeks ago, a man came in. He was a fairly large man. He ate 28 baskets of crab legs. And each crab leg basket is supposed to be a pound. But we were guessing ours was like 2 pounds at least. It was bigger. They put a lot in there. So we ate 28 baskets along with 7 like Heineken beers.
Jeez.
In one sitting.
And how many crab legs are in like one of those baskets then?
Well, one of our baskets happened to have maybe like probably 8 legs.
8 legs.
Yeah.
20. So at least almost 200 crab legs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man,
And he was eating them for sure because everybody was watching. He was pulling all the meat out. He was doing his job.
That means he at least emptied out a good chunk of a beach.
Yeah, and he definitely paid off his all-you-can-eat. Like at that point, the restaurant was losing money. They were losing their crab legs. He was taking them. Isn't that funny?
That is pretty wild. I wish I was there to watch.
So I wanted to ask you, can you remember a time when you ate so much that you physically felt pain? I mean, maybe it was at Chipotle after eating like a huge burrito, right?
Normally if I feel pain, it's after a buffet and I think, oh, I love some of this apple pie and there's also a whole plate of biscuits over there. Normally breakfast.
Oh yeah.
I love breakfast buffets.
Oh yeah.
So I fill up the whole plate and I eat it all, and I'm semi full at that point. And I'm like, well, I'll go for seconds. But when I think seconds in my head, I think, oh, I'm gonna go maybe get another piece of dessert or something. But then I end up getting a whole nother plate. And
A full plate too.
so 2 full plates of breakfast. After that, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling it now. And then maybe your little brother, he goes, hey, can you come with me to the buffet? I don't want to go by myself. And then you're over there. So you grab maybe half a plate of stuff. And that's when you're walking away like, I ate just enough.
Yeah.
A little too much.
A little too much. You
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable, you
Yeah.
know? You're past the sleepy point of like, I'm full and I feel good. You're just like, oh, trying to hold your gut in, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So the stomach, its primary purpose is it's digestion at its core. So there's different mechanical properties that the stomach has, and the main properties it uses to digest your food is expansion and contraction, along with the chemicals that are contained within the stomach. So the contraction is a form of mechanical breakdown of the food. The purpose of the breakdown is actually to increase the available surface area for the chemicals in the stomach to kind of surround it and absorb your food and the nutrients, you know? And that not only absorbs the nutrients into your stomach, but it also happens in your intestines. But the stomach is one of the first places it will absorb those nutrients.
Right.
So the gastric glands of the stomach actually secrete an enzyme, or not just one, multiple enzymes that perform chemical breakdown. Pepsin is the enzyme that breaks down the protein in food. It also secretes hydrochloric acid, which you know is like a common acid, and it kills almost all bacteria in the food. Although obviously we know food poisoning is a real thing, and I believe that is when the hydrochloric acid is overwhelmed by the amount of bacteria in your stomach. It can't handle it, and that's when the bacteria starts being absorbed into your blood, and that's when you get deadly sick with food poisoning.
Ugh. Just thinking of it just makes me go, oh.
Have you ever had food poisoning? Or semi-food poisoning?
I think I've had semi-food poisoning. I think I've eaten something and gone, oh, that's not good.
It wasn't good, yeah.
No.
I've never had food poisoning, knock on wood. I eat a lot of food. I eat out a lot, so I hope I don't experience it. Apparently it's terrible.
Yeah. Well, even eating something that you know is bad can like make you feel queasy. Like small story break. In high school. In high school, I was in French class, and when you're doing a language class, you always end up having the National Food Day.
Oh yeah, of course.
That you bring in food. Well, I made a pastry that was made with eggs and stuff, and it was a very delicious pastry. I had some leftover, and I threw it in my locker. And I was hungry the next day, and it was still in my locker.
Okay.
So I ate it, and I shouldn't have eaten
it. Is it good pastry anymore?
No, it was one of those pastries that you make it, and then you eat it or refrigerate it. So keeping it in like a room temperature locker for a whole day.
Especially a locker too.
Yeah. It was one of those, I ate it, and 10 minutes later I was like, I made a mistake. I need to go to the nurse's office.
I ate a bad pastry.
Yeah, that's what she's like. Oh, the nurse was straight up like, oh, what's wrong? I'm like, I know exactly what's wrong. I know exactly what I did. I just need some Tums and I'll be on my way.
That's hilarious. You knew it was a bad pastry.
Yeah.
You knew it was sitting out. So it's that mental feeling. That's part of it, you know? It's just terrible knowing that. I mean, it could be painful at some point if it actually is. The bacteria is actually getting into your body, the poisonous bacteria. So back to our favorite stomach. It also secretes a mucus that protects the stomach from the hydrochloric acid. So otherwise, without that mucus, your stomach would get like burned holes in it, and that's a common medical case that happens to some people. You can get like a burn in your stomach. It'll burn a hole in it. So, how much can your stomach actually hold? How big can it fill up? So the volume of a human stomach varies depending on the person. It's all different. Obviously, like the dude who ate 28 baskets of crab legs, he was a little bigger. You can assume his stomach was probably bigger than a liter,
Yeah.
So the typical volume is roughly 1 liter. That's like average. So can you picture like a 1 liter?
1 liter soda.
Yeah. What's the big soda can? Is that a 2 liter? So half of that?
Half of that.
Yeah, that's like your stomach. And I don't know if that's full or fully expanded, or a regular expanded or fully contracted. Because there's the fact it can go up to 50 times the resting size or the unfull size of your stomach. 50 times.
Well, I'm going to go on a limb and say that it's probably the fullest it can get is 1 liter. Otherwise, 50 times would be kind of big.
Well, I know how full it can get.
Oh.
It's bigger than 1 liter. It's actually a gallon.
A gallon?
Picture a milk jug in your stomach. That is like the max, the average that a person can take. It stretches, so it would actually rip if you ate too much. Your body would obviously throw it up before it could get to that point.
Can your stomach rip?
I mean, it's a muscle. It's skin, like it's a skin little pouch in your stomach. You can rip it. You can rip your skin like a cut, you know?
Yeah. Like,
so
sorry, coach. I tore my stomach last night.
I got a hole in my stomach. It's pouring out food. Yes, but your body would obviously like throw up before it gets to that point. That's why. I mean, back in Roman times, they would, like, a common thing, they would just eat until they're full, and then they'd throw up and then go inside and eat more. You know, their body couldn't take more. So that was like a common thing they would do at dinner. They would like go outside and throw up their food and then go inside and back and eat more for 3 days or whatever they did. Isn't that crazy?
What a weird idea. But I mean, when I think of Roman parties, I think high class, like almost like in the Hunger Games, the capital people.
Oh yeah.
Don't they have something like that to throw up their food as well?
Yeah. It's some weird totalitarian society.
It's indulgence.
It is indulgence. And the stomach, the word that we can use, it can be distended, meaning it's swollen or bloated. And actually, it goes up to 4 liters, which is slightly bigger than a gallon.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, and it just stretches. I mean, it's like skin. You can grab the skin on your arm. It stretches. The stomach is just like that, but inside of you. So there's plenty of room for food. I mean, and it gets compacted, especially if you chew a lot. So you can fit more, essentially, if you're chewing more, you know? I mean, the enzymes in your stomach are going to break down that food, but if you chew it real fine, you can fit a lot. Same goes for liquid. You know, liquid's going to fill up too. So next time you're eating at a buffet, can you picture like a milk jug in your stomach, and are you going to eat according to that?
My answer should be no, but I'll keep the mental note of maybe yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I can do this much, but sometimes I don't need to fill the whole stomach.
No. Save it as a treat, whatever you're eating, you know? Yeah. Moderation is key. And just doing this research made me think of something really, really interesting. Because your stomach is essentially a muscle, can you exercise and train that muscle to stretch farther than it normally would? Or it can be stronger so it can handle more before it pops, essentially? Could you stomach Olympics? You know, I mean, is that competitive eating? Do they have trained stomachs? Is that part of it?
That's what I was going to say. I think competitive eating has something like that of they have larger stomachs, maybe. Mm-hmm.
They're able to handle more, you know, it flexes more and they can handle that discomfort, or they're just used to it, you know?
Because I've seen eating videos of people eating like ridiculous amounts of food.
Oh yeah, crazy amount.
50 pancakes in one sitting. And that's a lot. That's a lot of food, and you wonder, where does it all go? So they must have something.
Oh yeah. Some people are, I mean, if you're bigger, I guess naturally you would have a bigger stomach.
Well, that's why you're bigger.
That's why you're bigger, yeah. Yeah, just to handle the more food. So, all right, I just want to end on, you should never eat so much that you feel pain, because at that point you might be ripping your stomach. That's just dangerous at that point, you know?
I'll keep it in mind.
So I guess you can work your way up there. Say if we're competitive eating, maybe one of these episodes we'll talk about some world records or something.
Oh, world record episode.
And scare ourselves.
Yeah.
Eating that much food.
Well, Matt, now I'm hungry, and it's dinner
I'm hungry
time,
too.
So I think that's it for this week. It's good to be back.
It is great to be back.
I missed this.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week on another 2 topics.
See you soon.
See ya.
This was 2 Top.
an independently created and run podcast created by Thomas Lance and Matt Berg and produced by Thomas Lance. Two Top is currently a non-funded project recorded weekly. For general inquiries or feedback, contact us at twotoppodcast@gmail.com. Thanks, and join us next week for another Two Topics.